It's December on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula and Neil is feeding the locals.
Yes, this is our herd of red deer that we keep around the bunkhouse. An awful lot of people that come and stay here have never seen, they've never seen their largest native mammal up close. And in the woodland area here we try and keep the impacts of the deer to a minimum. But we want people to be able to see them, so what we've done is we've got them into the routine of feeding at the house here. So we have a couple of stags and a wee group of hinds that come in round the house all the time. And these are wild deer, they're not park deer, these are wild deer that have just got used to this as a party trick. It's a combination of things that we've done here. We've sown a lot of grass species here that deer like, so the deer are here throughout the year. In the summer of the year they calf in the woodland round the house, and there's now a stag standing about 40 yards from me. Come on! Come on! So I mean, he doesn't know you, but you'll find that they can quite easily tell people apart. So my wife feeds them more than I do. I mean, when Faye's in the garden, the deer will literally come within 2 and 3 feet of her.
For West Highland hunting, it's been another successful stag season, and Neil's guides and clients are now focusing on managing the hinds, which is one of the reasons Tim is here. For the later part of the season, Neil has been putting a new round through its paces, the fashionable 6.5 Creedmoor.
I mean, I've been doing this for about 40 years now, and I'm probably getting a bit old-fashioned now that there's things I use and I like, and I've been a huge fan of the 300 WSM, but in fairness, I'd spoken to 2 or 3 people and they said, try it. Bradley Bornall, I know very well, Brad said it was a terrific round. The Hornady guys themselves were very excited about the accuracy they can get from it. And I've always kind of felt that maybe the 6.5 was a wee bit undergunned for big red deer. So we thought we'd give it a whirl. So at the end of the stags this year, switched over to this new R8 Success, switched over to the 6.5 Creedmoor. It probably doesn't have the same knockdown power as the 300, but that would be obvious. But its consistent accuracy is excellent. And this round and this rifle, they're literally putting them one round on top of the other. And particularly for lady hunters or for lighter and smaller hunters, with a moderator on it, on the R8 with a 6.5, it's really like shooting a 2.2.
However, today it's not actually about red deer and rifles, it's about goats. For some reason, feral goats seem to attract a lot of media attention, especially when they are shot by Americans. So Neil wants to explain a little bit more about this alien non-native, their natural history, and the benefits they bring to the rural economy. First, we need to find some. Tim and David are sent off in search of Billy, Nanny, and the kids. High above the Peninsula Road we find them. They're roaming within the protected Soonart Oakwoods. They're not the only example of nature's bounty having an impact here. Rhododendron is rife. As an alien non-native, goats can be shot, or they can be removed by live capture through darting or trapping. So what do you do with them once you've captured them? Their status means they cannot be released into the wild elsewhere. They have to be contained. That's a problem for anyone managing a goat herd.
A lot of things that we become very learned and study and find out, we'll find our ancestors have worked out all on their own. And probably one of the things that's most interesting about the islands around the coast of Scotland that very often have the name Goat Island or Eilean and Goba was the fact that goats swim like a brick. And very often what they would do is culturally, the billies that they used for breeding purposes, they didn't want these smelly evil nature beggars wandering about their communities all the time. So what they did is they took them out and put the billies on islands. And very often on the west coast where goats are established on rocky outcrops, points, remote areas and islands is because they were physically put there to keep them out of the way. And when you look at places like this, there are goats active around this area, but they can't really swim about and cause any grief because unlike red deer who swim happily back and forth across Loch Soonart, the goats are pretty much landlubbers. They don't like putting to sea and they're not competent swimmers.
Back on the hill and the herd are wary, but they stick around. They're a varied mixture of colours. Neil has witnessed sea eagles snatching the white-coloured young, which is another reason he believes they spend so long among the trees.
Now, even before goats became mainstream media, we were going to talk about goats anyway.
Yes.
What were the sort of the areas where people were showed their ignorance about goats and their natural history?
Well, I think a lot of people think there's the British goat, or the primitive goat, or the feral goat, or whatever we want to call him, is something fairly unique. But he's not a native. He's not part of the natural flora and fauna of the UK. And
even with 3,000 years under his belt.
Well, it's an interesting point of view. I mean, you could say that the feral goat's been in the Highlands of Scotland longer than the Scots are. I mean, they've been here since the Bronze Age, so they probably are more Highland than the Highlanders, and probably more Pictish than the Picts. But they came here with early settlers, and it's a fair point you make, David, and we've discussed this already. I mean, what makes the feral goat public enemy number one? And no one mentions the brown hare, when we're pretty confident that the brown hare arrived here with the Romans. So he's not quintessentially British either, but it's pretty much ingrained in what we do. But the hare probably came from a wild source, but the goats most definitely came from an agricultural, domesticated source.
What does the government want to do with goats?
They want them gone. I mean, governments, if you go into any of their websites, you'll see that they're quite categoric about how destructive and damaging the feral goat is. And they make no bones about it, that they don't want their range to expand, and they want the impacts from them contained. And this can only be done through control and culling.
But what they're using is the trophy element, aren't they? That's the aspect that they're really honing in on.
Well, I think there's a lot of people would say that, I mean, I've shot a few goats in my time, and compared with stalking red deer, they're not desperately challenging. But what I will defend it with is that to people that collect capria, they complete their collection. I would suggest that if they didn't generate these sorts of incomes, then the limited tolerance they still have would lead to zero tolerance, and they probably would be gone, which would suit a lot of conservationists but upset a lot of people that have a passion for the goat.
Neil really does appreciate this long-serving member creature of the British Isles, as do many of his clients. They're here to stay. However, goats, like the red deer, find the spotlight when wildlife management is under scrutiny. It would be nice to see other more destructive alien invaders taking the heat, and the goat not always playing the scapegoat.